Welcome to Queen Deluxe. Let's do some vintage sewing. Hi, Bronwyn here. I'm starting a new sewing project and I want to take you along with me. It's a DIY reconstruction of this original 1920s dress. This time around, we will take a close-up, detailed look inside and out to discover how this dress was made and how to proceed. Let's get started. Here we go, our 1920s dress. It's black, long sleeves, an embroidered bodice with a satin two-tiered skirt. This dress has an asymmetrical neckline, beautiful metallic embroidery that runs for the whole bodice and down to the hip line. The dress has some severe damage from its time here on Earth. A large hole at the shoulder where it might have been hung up with dry rot, and then a large hole at the elbow where a previous repair has been done, and you can see the hand stitching that they did to try to repair that hole. At the neckline, there is a two-tier circular ruffle that has been starburst pleated. There is a small hand-stitched section at the top of this ruffle. One side is left raw and the other side is top stitched. The hem is got a PK stitched hem, and then the other side is left raw. Here we are at the cuff of the sleeve. There's a satin binding and then the embroidered section. There's the placket that you can see with the tiny hand-stitched snap, and the satin part is finished off with a bias binding. And here's a beautiful shot of the embroidered section with the gold thread. This part is in pretty good condition and lovely, lovely to look at. Hip band embroidery and a close-up of the embroidery on the bodice. Here's the center back of the dress with this lovely satin binding that goes across the shoulder blades. I love this detail on this dress. I think it's my favorite part. I love a good back. Here is the skirt, top tier with the big hole center front, and then we pan down to the underskirt. Here we go. I have it inside out so we can see what's going on the inside. So some interesting things that are happening. Here we are at the hip line where the lining of the skirt attaches to the bodice. There's a large 2-inch seam allowance in that lining, which is interesting to me. Makes me think that this was left for alteration purposes. Panning down, we can see where the bottom ruffle attaches to the lining and a small hand-stitched 1/2-inch tuck that has shortened the dress's skirt. Here's that tuck and seam up close. Back up at the hip band, here is that large 2-inch seam allowance and the seam allowance from the bodice to the hip band. It has been hand stitched down, as you can see, which I find a little bit interesting. I have 2 muslin labels that have been sewn into the dress, one at the hip line and one at the neck. They are faded out, so I don't know exactly what they were used for. At the side seam of the skirt, we have some sewing pins holding that seam together. I don't know when these pins were placed here, but they're holding that seam together. The thread has been completely rotted out. Moving down, you can see some little triangular shaped extensions. Many times the fabric was narrower than the pattern piece, and so you have to add a little extension, and that's exactly what's going on here. You can see that the triangle is on the straight of grain, selvage to selvage. At the shoulder line, you have a little bra strap, slip control mechanism, little piece of twill tape and a snap. The sleeve. Here we are at the arm's eye. There is a French seam in that arm's eye, and then as we move down to the side seam, the side seam is pinked, which I find interesting. Usually they're both French seamed if you're gonna do French seaming at all. So that's weird. All right, so I found one more thing here. This is the hem of the dress, and I thought from the front, it looks like there's a binding on the bottom. But right here where the stitching has come out, do with one hand. All right, here we go. It's really a tuck that they've taken in the bottom, like an inch from the bottom, and then they've wrapped the bottom of the skirt around that thing so it looks like a binding, and it kind of holds out the bottom of the skirt. How cool! You guys tell what I'm talking about? Get really close here. There we go. That little tuck. Isn't that groovy? What a fabulous seam finish. I love it. Now what I'm gonna do is carefully measure each of these components and put it on paper. In our next episode, we will cut out a mock-up and see how I did. Okay? Woohoo! Super exciting to get this started. All right. Thanks for discovering with me today. I hope you had fun and enjoyed this deep dive into this 1920s dress. If you did, why don't you hit that like and subscribe buttons. Next time, I will cut out this dress in muslin for our mock-up. See you next time.